Welcome back to Taking Stock, where we get to talk to our experts in our small business community about the common challenges they are facing in their business and how to solve them in a way that leads to better business, more productive teams, and stronger communities. As always, I'm your host, Zeke Bowman, Head of Product here at Coble. Today, we're here with Javan Lapp and Zeke Harnish, who have each spent the majority of their careers in the manufacturing space and have led teams through company transitions, both big and small, including a major transition to lean manufacturing and an acquisition by a national brand. They've been kind enough to join us for 2 episodes, the first one focusing on their approach to lean manufacturing businesses, and the second one on a deeper dive into how they implement lean and how they might apply some of their learnings to your business. All right, welcome to the podcast, Javan, Zeke. We're excited to have you. So the first, where I'd like to start with this episode is getting into the Keeling story. And so let's start at the beginning. How'd you all get into manufacturing?
So for me, it started here at Keylink and its sister company at the time, Superior Plastic Products. It really wasn't intentional from the standpoint of career choice. I needed a job after school. It was the aftermath of the Great Recession. I didn't feel like I could be very choosy. And honestly, I thought originally my job in production here was a short-term gig. But I kind of fell in love with manufacturing, the thrill of making products, solving problems, and really the integrated systems required to make people, product, machinery, information systems all work together well. So 16 years after starting as a machine operator on the production floor, I'm still here.
Wow, I'm going to do this because I don't have, the economy's telling me this is your choice. This will be short term to 16 years later and arguably running the show.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's wild. Zeke?
Yeah, so for myself, outside of high school, I went to college for IT work or information technology with the focus in networking and security. So I originally joined Superior Plastic Products and companies in IT working in help desk and systems administration. Over time, really worked to develop that team to have the kind of philosophy of IT being a partner in the business and helping the business grow.
Okay.
And through that focus on solving problems and helping add value to people and how they do their work and value to the customer, gave me the opportunity to kind of step into the operations role and kind of leading the daily manufacturing team. So really enjoy the innate chaos of manufacturing. There's always a new problem, a new challenge to solve. So
yeah, it's interesting to think about. I think most people who don't work in manufacturing might think of it as a very linear thing. It's like the assembly line videos you see and it all just works. So when you say chaos, that
there's a lot of complexities in manufacturing, a lot of points for something to go wrong.
Yeah. So you both were at Keylink. You've been here for a while. What does Keylink do? What do they manufacture? Who do they serve?
Yeah, so Keylink manufactures aluminum railing systems, primarily for decks, porches, balconies, serving residential and commercial building materials markets. So we fabricate and powder coat aluminum, and then we machine stainless steel components for our cable railing systems.
Yeah.
That's really what we do.
Cool.
We ship product to lumber yards, to building materials distributors throughout the country, have a mix of kind of stock product that goes out in truckload quantities and then other products that are special order. So if you want a special color job, you want your railing to be green or red or something like that, then we have to take that job through the plant as a special order. So we really have this mix of SKUs and products that flow through the plant, which adds to the complexity, but also the fun of it.
Yeah. So you're a B2B business in that regard.
Yes.
You're never direct to consumer.
Correct.
Cool. So we've chatted before. We've met before. You've spoken or shared at Coble at gatherings. We've partnered and followed with you for a while. One of the phrases that is ingrained in me from you all is this people, process, and technology. Can you tell me, just give me the high level, where did that phrase come from? What's it mean? Why is it important?
Yeah, so the phrase actually comes from a book called Lean IT by Stephen Bell.
Okay.
And I we were debating this morning who found that book and who recommended it first. I don't think we actually ever agreed on who found that book. But in that book, Steven spent a lot of time talking about IT integrating as a partnership in the organization, helping with growth, and how in organizations he saw weakness a lot where IT departments would just jump to a tool to solve a problem instead of bringing clarity around and thinking about how do you help people be successful. And he offers this framework of thinking to his readers on how to approach work, and that is the people, process, technology. So the people piece is the belief or the idea that people come to work every day, they bring their skills, what they're good at, and first you got to understand what is that person's job, what is their role, what do they do, and what does success look like for them in their jobs. And then he goes on and talks about process, and process is the way in which the work is executed, and the way in which they get the information and the inputs they need to do their job, and making sure that there's clear alignment and clarity provided to how that process works and supports that person. And then he talks about technology then as a third piece that brings reduces time when executing the process and reduces cost out of the process. So he really challenges the reader to reframe their thinking. Instead of technology being the solution, is the tool to help an individual or person be more effective and efficient at their job.
That's great. It's a good overview that helps at least me understand where that comes from and how you get there. Also, it's not lost on me if that's your IT framework, very user centric. You're essentially building a product team. So you're working in like manufacturing of a product. It's like handing the glove, it seems like, in your workflow. Let's dive deeper into those segments, and let's start with the people side of things. How do you ensure you have the right people, and how do you make sure they're in the right spot in organizations? I feel like you can find good people, but if they're not in the right place, then it doesn't work. And conversely, if you have people in a seat, their quality is relevant if they can't execute on that, right?
Yeah, Zeke emphasized that people want to come to work and want to do a job, right? So you want to build a culture where you can assume positive intent when it comes to people. I found in managing people, it's always best to start with assuming that people mean well, that people come to work wanting to do a job, wanting to go home feeling like they've accomplished something. People aren't coming to work trying to mess up or make mistakes. In order to do that, of course, you have to have some level of discernment about what roles you put people in. You have to have an ability to move people into the jobs that they're best at. And ultimately, that's a responsibility in the business to start by clarifying what are the roles that are needed? What are the jobs needed to do the work? So if you start with that clarity of expectations, that's key to setting people up for success. You can then do the discernment. You can then, feedback loops. You can get input from people on what's working and not working, and really work to create a culture that is high accountability and high learning.
Okay.
And I think the challenge is that many people often experience or feel like high accountability cultures are high blame cultures. And to me, whenever you have high blame in a culture, you reduce learning. It's hard to have a high blame and a high learning culture because you're not failing forward. There's no room to fail forward. And so you really need to work to develop this kind of high accountability, high learning culture. And you do that through clear expectations. So you start by saying, here's what success in this job looks like. And we're going to do everything we can to help you succeed in this job, help you be successful. Obviously, each person has got to do it themselves and actually do the work and perform it. But when you start with that assumption, then you can create a culture where you have high degree of confidence that people are coming to work wanting to do a good job, and you're not sort of playing these daily gotchas of people are messing up and they must be doing this on purpose and create these kind of things. I mean, it's wild what you find in a lot of work cultures. And if you want to have start with people, you've got to get the people right, people side right. So you got to hire for culture fit. I find promoting from within whenever you can helps.
Yeah.
Obviously, sometimes there's skills and abilities that you can find internally, and then you hire good people with strong culture fit. And if you do that, you start with good people, and you start with knowing that those people are set up for success, which then ultimately puts the responsibility in place for everybody to work to make sure that we're getting the process side right, and that the work makes sense for what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I want to pull in a couple of threads there that first of all, it sounds like you're an incredible boss to work for in that frame. Maybe the workers don't always believe that, but like when I hear accountability, I immediately think of environments where I've been in the past where like it is a playing game, right? It's like, oh, accountability means then we get smacked around and told how I'm not good. When you're reframing that as accountability as a tool for learning and growth inside the firm, which is that's a seems subtle but pivotal, and it also starts at the top. It's not like starting at the worker level, which is
it isn't ideal. We don't live up to it every day,
Sure.
But to me, it is crucial that if you want to have a culture that gets people right, you have to start with that. There is a responsibility on bosses to create the structures of clarity, and yes, the accountability that's needed, but accountability for the right purposes and to the right ends.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, the one thing I would add to that from I think an evolution standpoint, as we went through that journey, and I would say still going through that journey, is that a key challenge or tension point for us was getting our teams engaged in what Patrick Lencioni calls productive conflict.
Okay.
And I think this is particularly true to our area, speaking of like Lancaster County, is having those healthy debates when issues come up and people being comfortable to provide peer accountability. Because we believe that the best accountability is self-accountability, but then the second best is peer accountability. And we really struggled for a while for team members to just have those conversations with each other when problems come up. And even today, it's still something that as leaders of ourselves and our middle managers, that we regularly have to coach around on a daily basis to say, guys, we're not here trying to solve this issue because anybody did anything wrong. Though that does happen sometimes.
Yeah.
I would say that is not the norm.
Yeah.
We're here to make this easier for all of us to work together. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about us working together to solve this. So, even though we've been at this for 5+ years now, like I regularly still find myself coaching and nudging the team towards that productive conflict of problem solving, and fighting, I think, a human response to think the worst or think somebody's working against you.
That's interesting because that seems pretty extreme. I was going to ask what's the fear? Because I feel like that has to be rooted in some kind of fear.
I think it's true that we all struggle with, to a certain extent, inner fear of like making sure we're doing a good job, we're doing our job right. We get uncomfortable when somebody points out something we did wrong. Mm-hmm. I think pride probably is mixed in it with a lot as well too, and because I think one of the hardest things for anybody to say is, I made a mistake or I need help.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that we have a culture and we have a team where people, over time, that becomes something natural to hear.
Yeah. Are there any like top level challenges in this process that you have experienced? So if our listeners or viewers were thinking, yeah, so you're right. I need to evaluate my people. I need to make sure I'm getting the right people. It sounds like you all have grown and involved, and some of that is the culture of accountability and culture of productive conflict. Are there any other challenges that you would call out that are important?
Yeah, when you're going through culture change, it's very hard to delegate and feel like you can trust other people. So one of the things that we had to learn was that every team goes through different phases and stages, and when you are creating new systems and you don't have a lot of systems in place, it does take a more directive type of leadership.
Yeah.
When you have more maturing teams and mature processes, coaching teams is a better place to be in. So that's situational leadership,
Yeah.
knowing what stage you're in, what phase is called for. I think the tough thing for a leader is I think there's a lot of pressure to think in terms of what's my leadership style, what's my type of leadership. And many times leaders have to sometimes even lay that aside to say what's needed in the situation.
Yeah.
What does the team need here? And I might feel like I have the answers and I can kind of direct out of my experience. But if the team's ready to go to the next level, I got to step back and I got to coach and I got to lead with questions. If I want to coach and kind of ask those questions, but the team's at a place where, we're firefighting kind of daily on getting orders out the door, and we got a bunch of new people, and sometimes it does take a more kind of hands-on directive approach. So learning to discern what's needed in the time is definitely a key component.
One thing I want to lean into is kind of twofold. It's how do you get everyone on your team rowing in the same direction, and I think that pairs well with how do you build this, what I assume is a high resistance to change. It's pretty ingrained in the human. So you're talking about culture change, but then you have process changes. So that's a lot of oars in the boat. I live in Philly, so I see the crew teams on the Schuylkill, and it's like every one of those people, if they're not rowing precisely, it doesn't work. And I feel like shop floor is not different.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I used to think I liked change until I stopped to think about when I need to change. So I realized that it's easy to want other people to change and to want situations around me to change, but I think you're right. There's a strong kind of personal resistance to change. We all like to be comfortable. For us, the biggest challenge was for the company overall to have strong goals.
Yeah.
So we tried to do some process change, some process improvements before we sort of had organizational wide goals.
Yeah.
And know where we're going. So once we did a better job of having those higher level conversations and the conflict that needed to happen at that level, the productive discussions, and we know where are we going, and the organization's leaders are able to answer that question. Here's where we are going. Here's what we believe the future for this team, this organization looks like. Then we could have conversations at the department level and we could align everybody with that.
Yeah.
But if you don't have somebody saying, here's where we're going, here's where the boat is going to end up,
yeah,
it's really hard to get everybody rowing in the same direction.
So clarity on direction, clarity on vision, and actually even beyond that, because that seems like the common trope is like, you have to have a clear mission, you have to have a clear vision, but you actually have a destination in mind that you're going to go. Like, this is the in-state reality that we're driving towards.
Yeah, and then the only thing I would add to that is making sure that us as leaders and our managers are calling out the actions and things that are actually moving us in that direction.
Yeah. So you're doing all those things correctly. You're having those meetings. You're casting the vision. You're driving towards that change. Do you still encounter resistance? And if so, how do you deal with that?
When it comes to change management, there's a lot that goes into it, right? I mean, ultimately, if you want to get different results, you need to learn to think differently and you have to behave differently, right? You have to execute differently than you did in the past. And that there's a lot of resistance to that. It's unfamiliar. You're not sure if it's going to work. It's impossible to have clearly laid out that this is going to work if we do X, Y, Z. Like there is some figure it out as you go, oftentimes. And so you have to have the confidence that the team's going to be able to figure out those things we don't know yet. Obviously, you do your work to prepare and plan and reduce that risk as much as possible, but it's always an element of the change. So I find it's very helpful to be clear about future state. We talk a lot about future state. And then it helps the change to come back and clearly articulate present state, current state, and where things are today. And then help the team see the gap and what the big thing is we have to do to change it. It won't take care of all the uncomfortableness, but it creates clarity for the team that we know that we're here and we want to be here. So we're doing this one thing now so to help us get there. So I remember one time we were doing a plant layout change, and it was significant. We were moving a lot of equipment around and reorganizing the plant to change the flow of product.
Okay.
And we had spent a lot of time. We'd had meetings and kind of done things by the book in terms of stakeholder meetings and project meetings. And we had gotten to this future state layout. And we had a plan for how to move in all this. And I remember we got to that point in the project where the folks responsible for it were like, this is really disruptive. Is this worth it? Are we sure we should be doing this? And it's the point where they kind of look at me and say, like, you're making us do this, but I don't know that we should. And in that moment, we had something to go back to, and that was, okay, we're currently shipping this volume out of the plant on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
We know from our plan that we need to be able to get to this volume. We need to be able to increase the volume out the plant by 30%.
Yeah.
And we know that our current layout, the current flow of product, is a big hindrance to taking that 30% leap over the next, call it 18 months or whatever it was at that time. And so when you have that clarity, it helps the team say, okay, might feel disruptive. I'm not sure how it's going to work. I don't know if the bosses have I got a head screwed on straight with this, but at least they can answer my question when I ask.
Yeah.
And that specific example, I would say, is like the role of the leader in that scenario was to really help them see the forest through the trees, because what they saw every day was the chaos of trying to produce amount of product out of the plant that it was not designed to produce.
Right.
And there had to be this push to say, guys, like, we're going to continue to like live in chaos until we actually make this change.
That's good. That's it. Jamie, one of the things part of what you said there, I've experienced it myself when I'm working on a project where it's like you're walking out, you've done all the work, and you're walking up to that line and you see, so you're pulling the ripcord, jumping out of the plane, or you're not, and you're like, is it worth it? And it sounds like that you have to have the confidence and the fortitude just to step.
And there is a good balance there between change that's driven by management and change that's executed by shop floor. And like as a leader, you have to be able to discern when is it something that I have a vision for and I need to push for and really provide clarity and accountability towards executing, versus coaching and allowing the change to happen naturally within those who are doing the work every day.
Yeah.
Their change has to come about both ways.
Yeah. This is good. I think we could probably have an entire episode just talking about people and change management, because you all, I think I've done this at least once or twice. I don't want to leave technology on the table or without addressing it. So amidst all this change and you're dealing with your process, you're going through change management, you got the right people on the bus, you're all rowing in the same direction. Where does technology and systems and tools play into that? Where do you land that plane?
Yeah, so as I reflect back to 11 years ago when I first stepped into the company, technology was very basic. The company only really started using computers about 4 years before I started working for the company.
Okay.
And I would say like kind of the thought or around technology was it was really a tool used for like putting orders in and managing the company's books. Like it wasn't really as seen as something to use to help streamline and automate and make the add value to those who are working and executing on the floor. So one of the first kind of initiatives that we took on, and this was about the time we started our lean, started exploring lean in our lean journey, was to automate our paperwork or go paperless from our back office functions through our shop floor functions.
Okay.
So we clearly laid out like who are the people here, what are their jobs, what are they doing. We laid out how the paperwork flows, who's getting what information and what they need to do their job. And then we started looking at how do you get that data to that person and in that process in electronic format. And literally when we did paper, when the salesperson would enter an order, they would print out the sales order, the pick ticket for that, all the manufacturing batches, and sometimes you have packets that were up to like 20 pages big.
Oh wow. Okay.
And they would go into sleeves and they would follow the whole way through the shop floor. And they get lost, they get damaged. At one point, every one of those sleeves was either sitting on top of somebody's forklift or used for picking orders. Their sleeves even went into our hauling office, and that's how they scheduled. They had a big board in the office where they actually did the scheduling. So, and then those packets were going to accounting, and when accounting got those packets, that's when things would get billed. And I specifically remember like we would have times where things were going billed for months because the packets never made their way back into accounting for billing. So we went through a process of digitizing that entire process from order entry to into accounting for billing. And we because we went digital, we were also able to put a lot of double checks in place. So if something got lost or got missed, that the right operators or for example, like billing and finance would get a notification like, hey, something's past 10 days past shipping. Like, we need to check if this actually shipped and if it actually needs billed.
Yeah.
So that was really kind of our first go at integrating technology into a business process.
Yeah.
And we saw significant improvements and reductions in errors. And we also we didn't do any layoffs and any of improvements we made from technology gains, but we were going into that. We did not need to refill a production scheduling planning role. Actually, I should say more like order management, order expediter role.
Yeah.
And 2 inside sales roles as well too.
Okay.
Going through that paperless process. So we never did a deep dive on like the dollars it saved the business, but it had significant impact on order flow and time to do work.
Well, it improved customer service and lead time to customer as well.
Yeah.
Because what we found was printing out all those orders, they were getting stacked and they were sitting somewhere waiting for somebody to pull it. So we were able to address on the process side at the same time the process by which orders got prioritized and they got entered. We were able to track whether we were falling behind in order entry versus the orders coming in. So one of the things that Zeke and his team did an excellent job with then, and really was a model for everything that they did as an IT team later, was that they didn't just come in and say, "Hey, we're going to paperless." And paperless is a thing. Like if it's best practice in business, you should be paperless. They came in and studied the processes and said, where can we help these processes and where does it work? And later, as we went to other parts of the business and manufacturing, there were some areas we actually decided to stick with paper instead of going paperless because it was the right thing for the operators and the right thing to do. And I think many times in technology, people stay kind of surface level and they hear, going paperless is the thing, or, industrial automation. Like, we got to be doing that. How much money do we spend on that? And now it's kind of AI strategy. Every company should have an AI strategy. Don't get me wrong, but there has to be an understanding that we're gonna observe and we're gonna understand the current state of our processes and how to make them work better for our people and for our customers when we go to implement this technology, and not just sort of say, "Hey, check the box. We went paperless in this area."
Yeah, that's so good. It's a funny thing even when you say AI strategy, because technology can be used so often as a Lego block. We have to do this thing. We have AI incorporated without even understanding what problem you're actually trying to solve and whether AI is the tool to solve it or whether other software is a tool to solve it. I have two technology related questions that I want to make sure we get to before we wrap up this segment. And one is, you describe what sounded like a long process to migrate from a packets of paper moving around the shop or your workflow to a technology base. How did the technology element grow with the business? Was it like peaks and valleys? Like, okay, we have an inciting incident, we need to change a bunch of things, and then you level out, and then you do that again? Or was there kind of a steady growth of the company that forced a steady growth in the implementation of certain technologies?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely the latter of what you said. The technology tools we continued developing with the growth of the organization. We then went on to develop a suite of iOS applications for the business for warehouse and inventory management, which would have came after we've done that. We did that paperless work. Things for like receiving, shipping, inventory, like end of year counting, digitizing all that work as well too. And then we also started using technology tools to implement lean tools as well too, like Kanban, master production scheduling, things like that. So every technology tool was always a response to that we implemented was always a response to a business need. It was never like, oh, I have this great idea, or like,
right,
we think we should do this. Like, it always had a purpose and was always tied back to a job that somebody was doing.
Great. I want to ask about ERP. Clearly, I work for Cobol. We produce an ERP system that you are intimately aware of. When did ERP show up with Keylink? What happened? When did Keylink decide it was time for ERP, and what went into choosing your ERP solution?
So that actually happened shortly before I joined the company. So started to use it. I know one of the big things was just the size of the company. Tracking inventory was really the big need.
Yeah.
So understanding inventory, obviously, the company was going through many changes, and at that size and scale, you're dealing with financing with banks, that they need to know you have good inventory systems in place. And so, honestly, that's probably what drove it more than anything else. By the time I'd shown up, EBMS was mostly implemented, although we were barely using the inventory tools. I believe I was the first person to ever do a warehouse transfer and make sure that when we moved stuff between buildings, it actually got documented. So I had EBMS experience previous to coming here. So it was really just starting to get used. It was more like order entry and of course, accounting back office. But we had to implement the inventory tools. I was here when basically they were still doing physical inventory on a regular basis and not trusting the system at all. So, it's definitely gone through iterations as the business has grown, and the need for it has been better understood.
Hey, thematically, it seems like you all are really consistent. The tools you use come after you get make sure you have the right people in the right place and you understand what you need the jobs to be done to solve the problems.
Yeah, if the tools can be in service of the people doing the work and to preserve the integrity and the productivity of the processes that you put in place, that's the right use for it, and it's incredible what you can accomplish with the right tools. If you put the wrong tools in place, or if you don't prioritize the user experience, or think about what that user should be doing on a regular basis to serve the customers and the business ends, you end up with things that are clunky and things that don't work. And we had our fair share of those. We learned our lesson with those.
Yeah. I want to ask you a couple more questions before we wrap this segment. First is, what's the biggest challenges facing manufacturing right now? What should people who are in manufacturing, if they've not thought about it, be thinking about, or what are some of the big issues as you all have grown that you ran into that, and what advice do you have in navigating those?
So from a macro level, just zooming out really far, the struggle with manufacturing, especially here in North America, has always been competitiveness, right? We're facing the challenge of cheaper labor overseas, and it gets a lot of kind of press time in the media right now, as it has for quite a number of years. The opportunity for manufacturing is to make sure that we stay agile, make sure that we're continually improving our productivity. If we get complacent at all, there's a whole lot of ways to import product cheaper, even with tariffs in the news and things like that. From macro level, the issue is competitiveness, right? And the way you deal with competitiveness is you got to be customer centric. You got to be completely obsessed with how you deliver value to the customer, and you've got to be improving productivity on a regular basis. To me, that's the big challenge. And what we found is that many of the ways to do that is by making sure that your information systems and your material flow are married up in a way that they work together, and that it's not difficult to get the right information about how to complete a job and how to get product out the door.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned tariffs, although maybe a bit passively, and we hear a lot about those. You might have to be sleeping under a rock out in a barn without any connection to society and not know about it. Are those impacting you? And if so, how?
Certainly, imported goods, aluminum. There's no primary smelter of aluminum in the United States. So while we buy from domestic extruders, the supply chain is impacted by imports. It's just the reality of how it works today. So yeah, it increases the cost of our goods, which is why we have to continue to stay sharp. Of course, we've had to do a recent price increase as part of it. You have to do those things. But you also have to continue to improve productivity and control your costs and get more competitive. So there's just like anything else, when there's a challenge, everybody's facing it. There's an opportunity to be very quick to respond to it and take advantage of the situation.
Yeah. What are some of the things, maybe one each, that excites you the most about manufacturing right now? I mean, the industry, being in it, what's going on. Yeah.
I think the thing that excites me about manufacturing kind of goes back to what I talked about a little bit in the beginning. There's always a sense of chaos to manufacturing. But there continues to be, I think, this merging of technology, building systems that scale and serve people. And Jaden alluded to this, but this constant pursuit of better productivity. So like, especially as we continue to navigate the AI revolution, starting to figure out what it looks like to integrate those tools into manufacturing is something that particularly excites me.
Cool. Yeah, I'm very excited about AI from the standpoint of one of the biggest challenges always in manufacturing is how do you get your information systems to flow with your material, and to support your people in doing their work. And to me, it's very easy for data to be out of date, and it's very hard to have predictive data, especially at a very detailed level. And the way that manufacturing works, product mix is a big impact on productivity and costs of running a factory. So I'm very excited about tools that kind of free up the data, and make it easier to do the sorts of things with it that we kind of need to do all along.
Yeah, that's great. It's exciting. All right, last question I asked every guest on an episode is, what's a book or books that you'd recommend that business owners or those who are working in industry read? I think all of our listeners are learners and are always trying to grow up. So where would you send them? You want to go first? You want me to go?
Why don't you go first? There's so many good ones to choose from.
I actually had a couple here listed. I know I mentioned earlier, for any of the listeners that are actively leading an IT team or managing an IT strategy, I would highly recommend Lean IT by Stephen Bell. But then when it comes to kind of building effective teams, I've always really appreciated Patrick Lencioni's work, Ideal Team Player, 5 Dysfunction of the Team. And then when it came to kind of thinking about strategy around running the business and how to build great businesses, I've always appreciated Jim Collins and Dan Sullivan's work. particularly Jim Collins' Great by Choice, and Dan Sullivan's 10x is easier than 2x. So, interesting. So Dan Sullivan also has a great book about who, not how, about having the right people on the bus as well too, which is a great read.
Great. Kevin?
Keep it very thorough. I don't know.
Yeah, don't you steal all your answers?
I'd go with maybe Scaling Up by Javan Harnish. That was definitely helpful in thinking about how to scale business and everything that comes along with scaling people and systems and processes and then the go-to-market piece of it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you guys for being part of this. And I really enjoyed learning more about KeyLink, the history, and how the world of manufacturing exists today and how you all are in it. We look forward to another conversation, I think, in the future where we get to talk about lean as it showed up in manufacturing.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. We hope it has helped you to think about how to approach growth and development in your business and ensure your team is aligned around the same goals. If you enjoyed this conversation and found it helpful, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. We'll keep bringing you practical advice and expert perspectives to help you build a better business, more productive teams, and stronger communities. And if you have questions or topics you'd like us to cover in a future episode, let us know at marketing@cobalsystems.com. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Deke Bowman, and this is Taking Stock. We'll see you soon.